Which is more preferable? Current D&D design or PBTA style design? I don't know what caused me to think of this bleak dichotomy.
Wow, what a horrible, horrible choice. I think, ultimately, I'm gonna have to say that D&D is preferable. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a huge D&D fan, but I'm even less of a Powered by the Apocalypse fan, because there are fundamental differences between the two things. I think Dungeons & Dragons, for all its faults and sacred cows and everything else, is a role-playing game, in that you play a role, you inhabit the character, and they physically exist within a physical and somewhat simulationist game world to the real world. I mean, it's bad at modelling the real world, don't get me wrong, but your capacity to do things as your character is determined by that character's actual capabilities in the world. Whereas with Powered by the Apocalypse, it's a much more narrative-focused game, and your character's capabilities are much more driven by narrative rather than their physical existence within the world. And you don't really inhabit the role when you play Powered by the Apocalypse. Gameplay tends to take place on this kind of meta level, where it's more like you're a co-author rather than you inhabiting the physicality of the character within the game world, which is trying to map to some sort of reality, even vaguely. So it's even more abstracted. D&D, for all its faults, you can squish it and mold it into different shapes. It's had many different editions, which are different from each other, but similar enough that you can tell the common lineage. I mean, the OSR and everything stems from D&D, and things can be wildly different in there, while at the same time also being familiar. Whereas Powered by the Apocalypse, if you push it too far to try and make it into an actual role-playing game, as in, say, Dungeon World or Blades in the Dark, it becomes almost unrecognisable, and to no longer Powered by the Apocalypse, no longer necessarily obviously derived from it. You could say that D&D is like a dog. There are many different dog breeds, but they're all dogs. You can have tiny ones that fit in your purse, you can have gigantic ones that are almost as tall as you. Different temperaments, different colours, different coats, different ears, all the rest of it, but it's still recognisably, categorically a dog, right? Whereas Powered by the Apocalypse is more like a cat, and by and large a cat is a cat. There are rare breeds, sure, but it's the differences are nothing like they are amongst dogs. There's a handful of breeds that are physically different, like Maine Coons perhaps, or Munchkins, but by and large a cat is a cat is a cat. So Powered by the Apocalypse does one thing. D&D doesn't have to do one thing. Even in its base form, you can take the game in slightly different directions, do slightly different things with it. It's much more kit bashable. You can DIY it easier. Powered by the Apocalypse isn't that. I mean, of the two, I would say Powered by the Apocalypse isn't even really a role-playing game. I don't mean that necessarily in a denigrating fashion. It's just I don't like it. It's not for me. It doesn't scratch the itch. It doesn't have that role-playing aspect to it that I like. If you enjoy it, more power to you. I've tried. D&D I don't like either, but I can at least squish it and mold it and push it, bop it, until it's something closer to what I like without completely breaking it, and it is at least a role-playing game. So of the two, I think D&D would be the best out of those two, but fortunately we have many more choices than that.